Do you have any idea how much this costs? Clean that filth with your mouth. Now. The command, sharp and cold as shattered glass, sliced through the crisp autumn air. Victoria Davenport, her face a mask of contempt, pointed a perfectly manicured finger at her precious Hermes Birkin bag. On the gleaming emerald leather sat a tiny, sticky smudge, a blemish in her perfect world. 3 identical 5-year-old girls, their eyes wide with terror, stood frozen beside the park bench, staring at the mark. One of them, her small body trembling with sobs, began to inch forward, her little face pale with fear. On a nearby bench, the billionaire Arthur Sterling lowered the antique book he was reading. An icy fury, so potent it felt like a physical blow, seized him. He recognized the woman instantly, Victoria Davenport, his most ruthless and successful executive, and he recognized her despicable cruelty. But what the venomous woman didn't know was that her tantrum over a luxury handbag was about to detonate a 7-year-old secret, obliterate her glittering career, and reunite a grandfather with the 3 granddaughters he never knew existed. But before we plunge into the heart of this unbelievable story, I need to know, where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop your city and the time in the comments below. Now, make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because you are not going to want to miss a single shocking second of this. Let's dive in. He is not coming back here. Not after what he did to us. Leo's fist connected with the oak dinner table, the impact rattling the plates and making the silverware jump. Dr. Elena Reed looked at her 18-year-old son's face, tight with a fury she knew all too well. Then at her 16-year-old daughter, Chloe, who sat perfectly still, her fork hovering halfway to her mouth. Elena took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the familiar weight settle in her chest. This was going exactly as she had feared. Leo, your father was in a catastrophic car accident. He has no one else, Elena said, her voice betraying none of the exhaustion she felt after a 14-hour shift in the ER. She fought to keep it calm. Clinical. It's just for a few months, until he's back on his feet. The cozy kitchen of their Stonehaven, Oregon home, usually a sanctuary of warmth and clutter, suddenly felt suffocatingly small. Leo shot up from his chair, its legs screaming in protest against the hardwood floor. 5 years, Mom. For 5 years, he didn't give a damn if we were alive or dead. And now we're supposed to what? Play happy family? His voice was laced with the kind of bitter sarcasm only a teenager who has been deeply wounded can perfect. Chloe finally lowered her fork, the clatter echoing in the tense silence. Is he really coming here? To live with us? Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it carried the sharp edge of a scalpel. Elena pushed her own untouched dinner away. She'd spent her day stitching wounds, setting bones, and delivering devastating news to other families. All she had wanted was one peaceful meal with her children. That hope had vaporized the moment she'd uttered Alex's name. He'll be in the guest room. He can barely walk right now, she explained, the medical facts a shield against the emotional storm brewing. The surgeon said he needs round-the-clock assistance for at least 10 weeks. Let his girlfriend take care of him, Leo spat, the word girlfriend dripping with venom. There is no girlfriend, Leo. Elena's voice was flat. There's no one. That's why the hospital called me. Earlier that day, Elena had been in the middle of a critical intubation when her phone buzzed insistently in her pocket. Seeing the main line for Portland General, she'd assumed it was a consult. Instead, it was about Alex Vance, her ex-husband, the man who had ghosted his own children 5 years ago, now lying in their ICU after his sports car became one with an old-growth oak tree. Dr. Reed, Are you related to an Alex Vance? The disembodied voice on the phone had asked. For a split second, a cold, hard no had formed on her lips. A single, satisfying word that would have cut the last tie. Almost. Chloe stood, her movements precise and controlled as she gathered her dishes. I have an advanced placement chemistry exam tomorrow. I need to study. Her face was an emotionless mask, but Elena, who knew her daughter's tells better than anyone, saw the slight tremor in her hands. Chloe, honey, we should talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. He's coming. We don't get a vote. We never do. Chloe placed her plate in the sink with a quiet click and walked out, her spine ramrod straight. Leo grabbed his leather jacket from the back of his chair. I'm going out. Leo, it's a school night. Where are you going? Does it matter? He shot back, his eyes flashing. Dad gets to waltz out of our lives for half a decade and gets the red carpet rolled out for him. I leave for a few hours, and it's a federal case. Before Elena could formulate a response, the front door slammed shut with a force that made the family photos on the hallway wall tremble. Elena sat alone at the table, surrounded by the wreckage of her announcement and half-eaten food. This morning had been so normal. She'd woken up at 4:30 a.m., the quiet hum of the house her only companion. She'd made coffee, scribbled notes for the kids, and left for her early shift. Chloe, good luck on the chem test. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you? Leo, don't forget that college application deadline is Friday. No video games until your calculus homework is done. Love you. She'd stopped signing them Love Mom years ago. It felt redundant, a title she wore in every fiber of her being, every exhausted moment of her day. At work, just before the fateful call about Alex, her colleague Dr. Ben Carter had found her in the break room. Your son's school called the main desk, Ben had said, handing her a coffee. Leo missed his first 2 periods. Elena had closed her eyes for a brief moment, again. 4th time this month, isn't it? Ben had asked gently. Is everything okay at home? Fine, Elena had lied automatically. He's just being a teenager. A phase. A phase that had lasted 3 years now, ever since Alex had promised, sworn on his life, that he would be at Leo's 15th birthday, and then never showed. After her shift and the life-altering phone call, Elena had driven the hour to Portland. She found Alex in a private room on the orthopedic floor, his leg encased in a complex web of metal and pins, his handsome face a grotesque tapestry of purple and yellow bruises. He looked smaller than she remembered. Diminished. Elena, he'd breathed when she appeared in the doorway. You came. Your emergency contact list was empty. They called me because I was the only name in your old hospital file. She had stood rigidly by the door, refusing to move closer to the bed. How bad is it? Shattered tibia and fibula, 3 fractured ribs, severe concussion, could have been worse. He'd paused, the effort of speaking evident. The doctors say I need post-hospital care. I can't manage the stairs to my condo and I'll need help with, well, everything for a while. He had looked away then, at the sterile white wall. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option on earth. Now, sitting alone at her own kitchen table, Elena felt a wave of doubt so strong it made her nauseous. Had she made a catastrophic mistake? She dragged herself to the small guest room and began changing the sheets, the movements automatic. In the back of the closet, tucked away behind a stack of old board games, was a box of family photos she'd meant to throw out years ago, but never could. The first picture on top was of the 4 of them on the Oregon coast. Leo was 13, grinning, a smudge of chocolate ice cream on his nose. Chloe was 11, proudly holding up a perfect sand dollar. Alex had his arm around Elena, and they were all smiling, genuinely smiling. A family. Elena shoved the photo back in the box and slammed the lid shut. At 11:30, she heard the front door creak open. Leo was trying to be quiet, but the familiar sound of his worn boots on the hardwood was unmistakable. "Leo," she called softly from the kitchen, where she'd been sitting in the dark. He appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light. "What?" "We need to talk about this." "No, we don't. You've already made the decision. I am still your mother, and this is still my house. And now it's his house too again." Leo's voice cracked on the last word. "How could you do this, Mom, after everything he did? To you?" Elena stood up, her bones aching. "He has no one, Leo. What was I supposed to do? As a doctor? As a person?" "The same thing he did to us," Leo said, his voice dropping to a raw whisper. "Nothing." The sheer depth of the hurt in her son's eyes was a physical blow. It made her want to undo it all, to call Alex and tell him to find some other solution. But she couldn't. The Hippocratic oath she'd taken was more than a professional guideline. It was part of her soul. "He'll be here tomorrow afternoon," she said quietly. Leo just turned away. "Whatever, I won't be." Elena remained in the kitchen long after Leo went upstairs. Through the ceiling, she could hear Chloe's restless pacing, the steady rhythm of a caged animal. It was nearly midnight, and her daughter would be exhausted for her exam. Another problem Elena couldn't fix. Outside, the moon cast long, eerie shadows across the backyard. The swing set they'd built for Chloe's 7th birthday stood like a skeleton, a ghost of happier times they'd never gotten around to dismantling. Elena poured a small glass of wine she didn't want and stepped out onto the cold back porch. "Please let this be the right decision," she whispered into the darkness. She thought about Alex arriving tomorrow, about Chloe's silent rage and Leo's explosive anger, about the fragile, broken piece of their lives that was about to be utterly shattered. She finally went to bed after 1, exhaustion dragging her into a shallow, uneasy sleep. Just as she was drifting off, she heard it, the distinctive creak of the front door opening, then closing with a soft click. Leo was sneaking out again. Half asleep, Elena debated getting up, of confronting him. Then she heard another sound. Footsteps, slow and dragging, moving toward the door. Through her barely open bedroom door, she saw a shadow. It wasn't Leo's. It was Alex. He had arrived early, and he was following their son into the dead of night. Elena scrambled to the window, her heart pounding, just in time to see 2 figures moving through the darkness. Alex, limping horribly, using crutches she hadn't seen before, followed Leo, who was already halfway down the street. She grabbed her robe, her mind racing, but by the time she got downstairs and fumbled with the front door lock, they were gone. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she muttered, pacing the living room like a caged animal. An hour crawled by, each minute a fresh torment. Finally, the front door opened. Elena jumped up from the couch. Alex entered first, leaning heavily on the crutches, his face pale and beaded with sweat. Leo followed, hands jammed in his pockets, his gaze locked on the floor. "You should be in a hospital bed," Elena said to Alex, her voice sharp with a mixture of anger and relief. "The surgeon said absolute bed rest." "I needed to talk to our son more," Alex replied, his voice ragged with pain and exhaustion. Leo brushed past both of them. "I'm going to bed." "Leo," Elena called after him, but he was already taking the stairs 2 at a time, the heavy thud of his boots a final act of defiance. Alex carefully lowered himself onto the couch, wincing as he moved his injured leg. "I saw him leaving. Thought someone should make sure he was safe." "And what exactly were you planning to do if he wasn't?" she snapped. "You can barely stand." "Be there," he said simply. "That's all. Just be there." He shifted his position, a grimace of pain flashing across his face. He was just at the old playground. Thinking, I guess. Elena sighed, the anger draining out of her, replaced by a weary resignation. You shouldn't have come early. We weren't ready. They discharged me this afternoon. I didn't have anywhere else to go. They sat in silence for a long moment, the chasm of 5 years yawning between them. Finally, Elena stood. The guest room is ready. You should try to sleep. Elena, Alex said as she turned to leave, thank you for this. I know it isn't easy. She didn't answer. She just helped him to his feet and watched as he made his slow, agonizing way to the guest room, the sound of his crutches a new, unwelcome rhythm in her home. The next morning, Chloe came downstairs for breakfast and froze mid-step when she saw Alex sitting at the kitchen table. Good morning, he said, his voice hopeful. Chloe's eyes darted to her mother, who was at the counter making coffee. You didn't say he was already here. He came last night, Elena explained. There's cereal in the pantry. Chloe prepared her breakfast in absolute silence, choosing a seat as far from Alex as the small table would allow. How's school going? Alex tried again. Fine. Her answer was a clipped, frozen shard of a word. Your mom mentioned you're in AP chemistry now. That's impressive. I always struggled with chemistry. Chloe didn't look up from her bowl. Before Alex could say anything else, Leo appeared in the doorway. He took in the scene, the three of them sitting at the table like a twisted parody of a family, and immediately turned to leave. Leo, you need to eat something, Elena called out. Not hungry, he shot back, grabbing his keys from the hook by the door. You have school. I know where I'm going. The door slammed. Again, Elena returned to the table, her face tight with worry. He's going to be late again. Does that happen often? Alex asked quietly. Almost every day now, Chloe said without emotion, her first voluntary words of the morning. Elena shot her a warning look. Finish your breakfast. The bus will be here soon. After Chloe left, Elena began clearing the table with quick, angry movements. Alex watched her. Can I help with anything? She stopped, turning to face him, her control finally snapping. I have been doing this alone for 5 years, Alex. I don't need your help now. He nodded slowly. I know. But I'm here, and I have 2 working arms. Why are you acting like this is normal? She demanded, her voice rising. Like you didn't just vanish from our lives and now you're back for a casual visit? I'm not. I know none of this is normal, he said quietly. I'm just trying not to make things harder than they already are. Well, you failed, she said, turning back to the sink. You failed at that the moment you showed up. For the next week, the Reed Vance household fell into a tense, unbearable routine. Elena would leave for the hospital before dawn. Chloe would eat breakfast in silence and leave for school. Leo would avoid coming home until late at night, and Alex would sit in the living room, a prisoner in his own broken body, trying to heal while surrounded by the children who clearly wished he would disappear again. One afternoon, while Elena was at work, Chloe came home to find Alex in the kitchen, attempting to make himself a cup of tea while balancing precariously on his crutches. Let me do that, she said, her voice flat, as she saw him almost drop the kettle. Thanks, he said, moving aside. How was school? We had our chem exam. Chloe filled the kettle with practiced efficiency. How do you think you did? I don't know yet, but there was one extra credit problem I couldn't solve. It was about titration curves. Alex hesitated. I could take a look, if you want. I used to be pretty good with chemistry. Chloe studied him for a long moment, a flicker of something, curiosity, desperation, in her eyes. Okay, I'll get my notes. She returned with her textbook and a notebook filled with immaculate, color-coded notes, pointing to the problem that had stumped her. "Ah, I see the issue," Alex said after a minute of studying her work. "You calculated the molarity correctly, but you forgot to account for the diprotic nature of the acid at the second equivalence point." He pointed to her notebook. "You missed a step right here." Chloe's eyes followed his finger. She quickly scribbled a new calculation. "Oh, that makes perfect sense now." "You're very good at this," Alex said, a genuine smile touching his lips. "Far better than I ever was." For the first time since he had returned, Chloe gave him a small, almost imperceptible smile in return. The next day, she brought him her calculus homework. While they were working, Alex noticed a new trophy on the bookshelf. "What's that for?" he asked. Chloe glanced at it. "Science Olympiad. Regional champions." "That's incredible! When was that?" "Last month. Your mom must have been so proud." Chloe's face immediately shuddered. "She couldn't come. She was on call." "What about Leo?" "He doesn't care about nerd stuff," she said, turning back to her homework. No one came. Alex was silent for a moment, the weight of his absence pressing down on him. "I'm sorry I wasn't there." "You haven't been anywhere for 5 years," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "Why would you be there for that?" When Elena came home that evening, exhausted, Alex was waiting for her in the living room. "We need to talk," he said. "I'm tired, Alex. It was a brutal shift." Chloe won a regional science competition and no one was there to see her accept her award. Elena put down her bag, her shoulders slumping. "I know. I tried to get the time off, I really did, but—" "She stood on that stage alone, Elena." "Don't you dare," she warned, her voice dropping to a dangerous low. "Don't you dare sit in this house that I paid for and judge me. I have worked double shifts, sometimes triple shifts, to keep this family from falling apart. Where were you when Leo needed braces? When Chloe's laptop died and she needed a new one for school? When the roof started leaking last winter? I sent child support." "When you remembered to," she shot back. "And it was never, ever enough." Her composure finally shattered. "Do you have any idea what it's like to have to choose between paying the electric bill or buying your daughter a dress for her first school dance? To tell your son he can't join the travel soccer team because you can't afford the fees and equipment? Do you?" Alex looked down at his hands. "I didn't know it was that bad." "You didn't ask," she whispered, the fight leaving her. "You just left and started your new life." Their voices had risen, and neither of them noticed Chloe standing in the hallway, listening to every single devastating word. Nor did they notice when Leo came in through the front door, heard the shouting, and immediately went back out, the quiet click of the latch drowned out by their argument. 3 hours later, the phone rang. "Is this Dr. Elena Reed?" a stern voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Officer Martinez from the Stonehaven Police Department. We have your son, Leo, down at the station." Elena closed her eyes, a familiar dread washing over her. "Is he okay?" "He's fine. He and some friends were caught trespassing at the old abandoned textile mill." Elena looked at Alex, who had heard her side of the conversation, his face etched with concern. "I'll come with you," he said. "You can't even walk." "He's my son, too." At the police station, Leo sat on a bench, refusing to look up as they entered. "Dr. Reed," Officer Martinez said, approaching them. "Your son and 3 other boys broke into private property. The owner isn't pressing charges this time, but they're lucky they didn't get seriously hurt. That building is a death trap." Alex stepped forward, leaning on his crutches. "Thank you for calling us, officer. I assure you it won't happen again." Leo finally looked up, a flash of surprise on his face at seeing his father there. The car ride home was thick with a suffocating silence. "What were you thinking, Leo?" Elena finally asked. "It wasn't a big deal. Everyone goes there." It is a big deal, Alex said firmly from the passenger seat. That building could have collapsed. You could have been arrested or killed. Since when do you care? Leo shot back from the back seat. Since I'm your father. Oh, you're my father now? Is that how it works? Alex twisted in his seat to face him, wincing in pain. Leo, I know I haven't been here. I know I screwed up on a level that is almost unforgivable, but I am here now, and I am not going to stand by and watch you throw your life away because you're angry at me. I'm not angry at you, Leo said, his voice suddenly quiet and chillingly calm. I don't feel anything about you at all. The words hung in the car, heavier and more painful than any shout could have been. When they got home, Chloe was waiting up, her face pale. Are you okay? She asked Leo. He just shrugged and headed for the stairs. Elena turned to Alex. This is what it's been like, every single day, trying to be enough for them when I'm stretched so thin I can barely breathe. And I wasn't here to help, Alex said, his voice filled with a regret so profound it seemed to suck the air from the room. I see that now? Elena looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since he'd returned. She saw the pain in his eyes, a pain that went far beyond his physical injuries. It's not just that you weren't here, Alex. It's that they knew you chose not to be here, every single day for 5 years. That night, alone in the guest room, Alex stared at the school photos he'd missed. Chloe's braces, Leo's awkward growth spurt. The pain in his leg was a dull throb compared to the agony in his chest. Down the hall, Elena found Leo's door unlocked for once. She knocked softly and went in. He was lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling. We need to talk about tonight, she said, sitting on the edge of his bed. I know it was stupid. Yes, it was. But that's not what worries me. It's why you did it. Leo was quiet for a long time. Sometimes I just want to feel something else. Something besides... He trailed off. Besides what? Being the kid whose dad decided he wasn't worth sticking around for. Elena reached for his hand. Your father made a universe of terrible choices, Leo. But none of them were because of you. Then why did he leave? Why did he stay away for so long? Elena didn't have an answer that could heal that wound. I don't know, but he's here now, and you need to decide what, if anything, you want from that. What if I don't want anything? Then that's your choice, but don't keep hurting yourself to punish him. He's not worth that. As Elena left his room, she saw the light was still on under Chloe's door. Her daughter was awake, probably studying, trying to impose order on a world that felt chaotic and out of control. It was another night in their broken home, another day of trying to piece together something from the ashes of what Alex had burned down. But in the quiet of his room, Alex opened a notebook. He began to write. There were truths he still needed to tell them. Truths that would change everything. Again. And he knew his time was running out. Alex's pen moved across the page, each letter a struggle. How do you tell your children you're not just a failure, but a dying one? The clock on the nightstand read 3:15 a.m. when he finally closed the notebook. Tomorrow. They had to know the truth tomorrow. Morning arrived with a sense of dread. Elena found Alex in the kitchen, his hands trembling as he tried to pour coffee. You're up early, she said. I need to talk to everyone. Together, after breakfast. The urgency in his voice made her nod. She'd make sure Leo and Chloe were there. Breakfast was the usual, silent, tense affair, but when it was over, Elena cleared her throat. Your father has something he needs to tell us. 3 pairs of eyes, ranging from hostile to indifferent, turned to him. Alex took a deep, shaky breath. The car accident. It wasn't just an accident. I blacked out at the wheel. He paused, letting the words sink in. I have pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The silence that descended was absolute, a vacuum that sucked all the air from the room. What does that mean? Chloe asked finally, her voice barely a whisper. It means I'm dying, Alex said, the words stark and ugly. The doctors gave me about 6 months. Leo shot to his feet, his chair crashing backward onto the floor. How convenient. Leo, Elena began, her voice sharp. No. Leo's face was flushed, his eyes blazing. He disappears for 5 years, shows up looking for a nurse, and now he's got a sob story, so we're all supposed to feel sorry for him? Alex didn't flinch. He just looked at his son with weary, pain-filled eyes. You have every right to be angry with me, Leo. This is just another manipulation, Leo shouted, his voice cracking. He stormed out of the house, the slam of the door a violent punctuation mark. Chloe sat frozen, her face ashen. 6 months, that's all? Alex nodded. I'm so sorry to put this on you. On all of you. Elena's hands trembled as she righted Leo's fallen chair. Why didn't you tell me this at the hospital? I was afraid you wouldn't let me come. So you lied. Again. She turned away, but not before he saw the tears shimmering in her eyes. I need to research this, Chloe said suddenly, standing up. Her voice was brittle, determined. There have to be treatments, clinical trials, alternative therapies. Chloe, Alex called softly as she rushed from the room. She didn't look back. Left alone with Elena, he watched her move around the kitchen, her movements jerky and unfocused. You have every right to throw me out, he said. She stopped, her back to him. And what? You expect me to kick a dying man out onto the street? No, he said quietly. I know you're a better person than that. She finally turned to face him, her expression a mixture of grief and fury. Why did you come here, Alex? Really? Why not a hospice? Because I had to see them, he whispered. I had to see my children one last time, to tell them how sorry I am. And what about me? She asked, her voice breaking. What am I supposed to tell them when you're gone again, this time for good? He had no answer for that. Can you even imagine? A bombshell like that dropped right in the middle of all this chaos. What would you do? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're finding this story as gripping as I am, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Leo didn't come home that night. Elena, her mind reeling from Alex's confession, called his friends, then the police, her professional calm dissolving into raw maternal panic. He's done this before, she told the officer, but never for a whole night. Alex sat in the living room, listening, each of her strained words another stone on the mountain of his guilt. When she hung up, she sank onto the couch beside him. This is my fault, he said. Yes, it is, she agreed, her voice devoid of accusation, just flat with exhaustion. But Leo makes his own choices too. Upstairs, Chloe's light burned all night. Elena found her at dawn, asleep at her desk, her laptop screen filled with complex medical jargon and mortality statistics for stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Leo returned around noon the next day, looking haggard. Elena hugged him, a fierce, desperate embrace, before stepping back. Where were you? Walking, thinking. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Later that afternoon, Alex found him on the back porch steps. Can I join you? He asked. Leo just shrugged. Alex carefully lowered himself onto the step beside him. The truth, Leo said finally, without preamble. The real truth. Why did you leave? Alex looked at his hands, scarred and worn. I was an alcoholic, he said, the words tasting like ash. A bad one. Your mother tried to help me, but I wouldn't listen. The night I left, I drove you home from baseball practice. Drunk. Do you remember that? Leo nodded slowly. We almost hit a truck. You were screaming. Alex's voice cracked, and I wouldn't stop. When we got home, your mother told me to choose. It was her and you kids, or the bottle. He paused, the silence stretching. And I chose wrong. I chose the bottle over my own family. And you stayed away, even after you got sober. I've been sober for 3 years, Alex confirmed. But by then the shame was... it was too much. I convinced myself you were all better off without me. Inside, Elena found Chloe in the kitchen, her research spread across the table. Look at this, Chloe said, her voice urgent. There's a new immunotherapy trial in Seattle, and a specialist in Houston who's using targeted radiation. Chloe, stop. Elena gently covered her daughter's hand. Your father, he's already been through several treatments. They didn't work. But we have to try. Chloe's voice broke, her carefully constructed composure finally crumbling. He just got back. He can't leave again. Elena pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her tight as she sobbed, mourning the father she had just regained and was already losing. That evening, Elena approached Alex. I scheduled an appointment with a family therapist. The first session with Dr. Winters was brutal, the room filled with 5 years of unspoken pain. I feel like I lost both my parents that day, Chloe said quietly. Dad left, and Mom, you disappeared into your work. You were always tired, always stressed. You stopped asking about our days. Elena stared at her daughter, stunned and heartbroken. I was just trying to keep us afloat. We know, Leo said, his voice surprisingly gentle. But we were sinking too. In the weeks that followed, small, fragile shifts began to occur. Elena adjusted her schedule. Chloe started talking about things other than medical trials. And Leo started to talk to Alex. One afternoon, he took Alex down to the garage. Mounted on the wall was a sleek, expensive-looking fishing rod. You kept it, Alex said, his voice thick. It was the last birthday gift you ever gave me, Leo said. For my 13th. We were supposed to go to Smithfield Lake. Do you think... Leo hesitated. Do you think we could go? Before, you know... Yes, Alex said, hope blooming in his chest. I would like that very much. The fishing trip was quiet, peaceful. For a few hours, they were just a father and son. On the drive home, Alex asked, Do you still play guitar? Yeah, Leo said. Actually, I want to show you something. He directed Alex to a friend's house and led him into a garage that had been converted into a soundproofed music studio. With his 2 friends, Leo played a song he'd written. It was powerful, raw, and brilliant. Alex was speechless. That was incredible, he finally managed. Did you write that? Leo nodded, a faint blush on his cheeks. Your mom knows about this, right? That you're this talented? Not really, Leo shrugged. She knows I play. She's never heard us. That night, a new crisis erupted. Chloe suffered a severe panic attack, collapsing in the kitchen, hyperventilating. Alex, drawing on his own experience from early sobriety, coached her through it. How did you know what to do? She asked later, embarrassed. I've had them too, he admitted. Does your mom know? No, she whispered. She has enough to worry about. It was another secret the family was keeping, another wound festering beneath the surface. But it was also a turning point. Alex, armed with the knowledge of his children's hidden lives, Leo's incredible musical talent, Chloe's crippling anxiety, knew he had to force them all to see each other clearly. He insisted they all attend Leo's upcoming show at a local coffee house. The night of the show, they sat together, Elena, Chloe, and Alex. When Leo took the stage, he transformed. The quiet, angry boy disappeared, replaced by a confident, charismatic musician. The song he played was about forgiveness, and as the final notes faded, Elena was wiping tears from her cheeks. "I didn't know," she whispered to Alex. "I had no idea." Afterward, they went out for a late dinner, the first time they'd shared a meal in public as a family in over 5 years. The conversation was easy, filled with laughter. For a few hours, they weren't broken. But reality returned with a vengeance at 2:30 a.m. when Elena woke to a loud crash. She found Alex on the bathroom floor. The next day, their oncologist, Dr. Freeman, delivered the devastating news. "The cancer has spread to his liver. We're no longer talking about 6 months. We need to adjust our expectations." "How long?" Elena asked, her voice hollow. 3 months, maybe 4. I'm so sorry." On the silent, agonizing drive home, Alex asked her to pull over. He turned to face his children in the back seat, his face pale but resolute. "There's something else," he said, his voice heavy. "You have a half-brother. His name is Noah. He's 7 years old, and he lives in Ohio." The silence in the car was a living thing, heavy and suffocating. Chloe's jaw dropped. Leo stared at his father as if he were a complete stranger. "What did you say?" Elena asked, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I have another son." "For 8 years?" Leo's voice cracked. "You had a whole other kid for 8 years and you never told us?" "You left us and started a whole new family?" Chloe whispered, the accusation hanging between them. "I think," Elena said, her voice dangerously calm as she pulled the car back onto the road, "that we should continue this conversation at home." The house they returned to no longer felt like a place of fragile healing. It was a crime scene, and they were all victims of a fresh betrayal. In the living room, the full, ugly story came out. Alex had met a woman after he left, they'd had a child, and they had later separated. "So you could be a father to him, but not to us?" Leo's voice shook with rage. "You stayed in the same city as him. You saw him on weekends, while you couldn't even be bothered to call us on our birthdays." "It's more complicated than that, Leo." "No, it's not," Leo shot back. "It's simple. You replaced us." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. "Where is this child now?" Elena asked, her voice flat. "He's staying with my cousin, his mother. She died last year, an overdose. I have full custody." The revelation was a gut punch. This child, this secret son, was an orphan, save for a dying father he barely knew. The next few days were a blur of anger and confusion. Leo got into trouble for reckless driving. Chloe retreated into her room, and Elena felt the weight of an impossible decision settling on her shoulders. Alex's cousin couldn't keep Noah permanently. When Alex was gone, the little boy would have no one. "He's your half-brother," Elena told her children during a tense family meeting. "And whatever we feel about your father's choices, Noah is an innocent child." "What are you saying?" Leo demanded. "That you're going to take him in?" "I'm saying we need to meet him." To everyone's shock, it was Leo who volunteered to go with Elena to the airport to pick up the little boy. "It's not his fault who his father is," he mumbled, a flicker of the good man he was becoming showing through his anger. They met Noah at the arrival gate on a Saturday morning. He was a small, quiet boy with Alex's blue eyes, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. When they arrived home, he ran straight into Alex's arms. "Daddy," he cried, burying his face in his father's chest. Watching the reunion, Elena's heart broke for the years her own children had lost. Slowly, miraculously, the children began to connect with their new brother. Chloe showed him her science books. Leo, discovering they shared a love of music, offered to teach him guitar. One afternoon, Elena saw Leo patiently teaching Noah how to throw a football in the backyard. She knew then what she had to do. That night, She told her children she was going to begin the legal process to become Noah's guardian. But just as a new, fragile peace began to settle, another secret emerged, the most devastating of all. Sorting through some of Alex's papers, Elena found a letter addressed to her. Her hands trembled as she read it. "Elena, if you're reading this, I've asked the impossible of you. But before you decide, you need to know the whole truth. Noah's mother wasn't someone I met after I left. She was someone I knew before. Noah was conceived while we were still married." The affair, the final, hidden betrayal. She confronted him, her voice shaking with a rage that had been simmering for 5 years. "All this time," she whispered, "you let me believe you just left. But you were cheating. You had already replaced us before you even walked out the door." His only defense was the truth. "I was a coward," he said, tears streaming down his face. "I was afraid you'd hate me forever if you knew." "I think I hate you now," she said, and walked away. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was her parents, arriving for a surprise visit, walking straight into the epicenter of a family imploding. The chaos of their arrival, their shock at seeing Alex, their confusion over Noah, was a welcome distraction from Elena's raw pain. But that night, Alex collapsed. The cancer had spread to his brain. He was moved to hospice care in their living room. He had days, maybe a week, left. In those final, surreal days, something shifted. Surrounded by family, his children, his parents-in-law, the son from his affair, the woman he had betrayed, Alex finally let go of all his secrets, and the family, in turn, let go of their anger. They took turns sitting by his bed, sharing stories, playing music, and just being present. Elena signed the papers making her Noah's legal guardian. The day before he died, Michael told Elena about a storage unit in Columbus. "There are letters in there," he whispered, "and a life insurance policy for all of you." He died at dawn, holding her hand. In the quiet aftermath, Elena drove to Columbus. In the storage unit, she found the letters, filled with the words he could never say. She found journals detailing how he'd secretly followed their lives online, celebrating their triumphs and mourning their struggles from afar. And she found the life insurance policy, large enough to change all their futures. But the biggest secret was one last letter, not from Alex, but from a law firm in Boston. It turned out Alex had used the money from his early successes to quietly found a small music production company, a passion project to help young artists. The letter was an official internship offer for Leo. A year later, the house in Stonehaven was filled with light and laughter. The kitchen had been renovated, the wall torn down to create an open, welcoming space. Elena, now enrolled in a nurse practitioner program, studied at the new island counter while 7-year-old Noah showed her a drawing. Chloe, home from her first year of college where she was studying biochemistry, was planning a summer backpacking trip through Europe, an adventure she never would have considered before. And on a large screen, Leo's face smiled at them from his studio in Boston. He was now a sought-after music producer, living the dream his father had secretly built for him. They were not the family they had once been, nor the broken fragments they had become. They were something new, forged in betrayal and secrets, but tempered by forgiveness and a fierce, unyielding love. They were proof that sometimes the most shattered things can be put back together, not as they were, but as something stronger, more resilient, and infinitely more beautiful. What a journey. If this story touched your heart, make sure you're subscribed for more incredible content just like this. And don't forget to check out the video that's popped up on your screen right now. I promise it's just as unforgettable.